So the old Hilly Dick or whatever, Hilly Dickinson or whatever stadium, hey, this is a kind of a monumental victory in a season where they're legitimately chasing European football.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VAR You Serious podcast. I believe it is episode 25, quarter of a century of episodes for us here. I am Dylan, and that is my dad, Mike. And Dad, we are jumping right into things. A very busy end of the season right after this international break. How are we feeling about certain things, either in the international break or after the international break?
Well, I'm definitely ready for the international break. Looking forward to seeing the U.S. men's national team play. Definitely need a break from Arsenal. That was a tough game yesterday, and it's just been such a grind for what feels like months on end. So it's kind of fun to turn our attention towards international play, not just the U.S., the world as a whole, but mostly the United States.
Yeah, and I think some big lineup decisions from coaches all around the world. They're trying to see who's going to be on their teams before the World Cup this summer, right? I mean, Thomas Tuchel is taking a squad, I think, of 30 something into these friendlies with the idea of seeing other players. For example, Ben White getting his first call up since 2022, which is unbelievable to think about. 4 years it's been since he's played for England, and we could see it again. But Dad, is there anyone on the U.S. team you're excited to see play?
I still need to see this group together, the supposed starting group for this summer, whatever that is exactly. Like, can we actually get them to play a couple of games together? And, I still have a huge question mark in my mind about Tim Ream. He's probably going to end up starting and playing a lot. I think that's a weakness. We'll see if anybody else rises to the occasion. I doubt it. So I just want to see if all 11 or most of the 11 that will be playing this summer can play together, because it just hasn't happened.
Well, I think, the back line has to be the question, to your point, Dad. I mean, Tim Ream, big question mark with his age. Serginho Dest getting injured again, so will not be involved in these games, which is unfortunate for him, especially as he's trying to get back to fitness. I mean, you're looking at the back line, kind of wondering where we're going to fill the gaps. And then obviously our supreme center back prospect in Noah Kai Banks seemingly making it clear that he kind of wants to have an attempt at the German national team over the U.S. national team. Is there any kind of thoughts you have on that one, Dad? I mean, I'm a little disappointed personally, but he's also so young.
I'm not surprised. I understand the desire to play for a German national team that historically is far superior to the United States. I don't know if it'll work out for him. I think it's unlikely to, in my opinion. But sure, if he ends up begging back to the U.S. for an opportunity, sure, give him a chance. But at this point, I don't think he's going to be a part of the World Cup team this summer either way. And so I don't even want to think about him. I just want to focus on the guy who are going to be on the field. Like you said, Serginho Dest is injured, although I think he'll be back in time for the World Cup. I'm so laser focused on the summer. We can talk about the future of U.S. soccer after the World Cup this summer.
Is the future now? We'll never know, I guess. But yeah, Dad, U.S. friendlies are going to be huge. Portugal and Belgium on the docket for the U.S. Obviously, two huge games for the team. What do we see happening with both of those games? I think it's more of a test trial period, but like you said, I think we all need to see some product as we're this close to the tournament.
For sure. I want to see if Portugal's going to bring their A team. Obviously, for the fans in the United States, we want that test. We want to see the big names from a country like Portugal, and the U.S. needs to get an idea of exactly, like I said, who are they? With the starting 11, the closest thing to it, who are they? Do they match up well against these better teams? It's the last chance. I guess there's a couple of friendlies right before the World Cup, but this is the last chance to really have an idea of where we're going heading into the summer.
Absolutely, and I think everyone's putting big lineups out. Portugal will be missing Ronaldo due to injury, but so much depth there in that squad. Belgium, obviously, such a heavy hitter for so long. Maybe not what they once were, but still an unbelievable team. I think everyone's going to be bringing their A game, depending on some players. I know a lot of guys have also dropped out across the leagues due to injuries and probably just pure fatigue. But, Dad, which game are you looking forward to more for the U.S.?
They're pretty equal, to be honest with you. I think they're both really top sides, and so um, probably going to depend on who Pochettino plays and which games, or kind of how he puts it together. Is he sticking with the three back? So for me, both matches offer a lot of excitement and a lot of opportunity. So pretty equal for me, to be honest. What about you?
I mean, I think maybe the Portugal one. I think, in terms of right now, they're a better team than Belgium. And I want to see how we stack up against a team of that quality. But I'd say Belgium's probably our better chance to get a result. But you never know with this U.S. team. They also beat Uruguay 5-1 not that long ago. So crazier things can happen. But, Dad, I do have to say, we had a Belgian player ruin our weekends a little bit, as well as the rest of his team in the Carabao Cup final. Jeremy Doku was playing on the left for Man City, and Manchester City beat Arsenal 2-0 in the final. A lackluster performance from Arsenal, to say the least, and Manchester City capitalizing and executing once again when they need to, I think is the best way to describe it, Dad. And I think we were all disappointed with the outcome of that game, at least on the Arsenal side of things.
For sure. I want to give City credit for what they did. They came with a plan, they executed the plan, and they simply played better.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of talk out there about Arsenal not playing well, and that's all true. But now that I've had 24 hours to kind of reflect, the reality is Manchester City outcoached us and outplayed us. Period. End of story.
Across the field.
Absolutely. I was obviously fired up about Kepa yesterday. I still am. I don't care what the contract says, whatever. Should have had Raya in there. But, in the end, I don't even know how much it would have mattered. We looked lost, completely lost. And that was shocking based on the season that Arsenal has been having. This is the kind of way I felt 2-3 seasons ago in big games. And to see Arsenal come out and look that way this season, to me, is shocking. I think everything is up in the air. Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League. Losing is one thing. Losing the way we lost, great concern. Great concern.
I agree. And, you see guys like Ian Wright saying that's pretty much the worst game he's seen from Arsenal this year and probably in the last 3 years. Nothing against City. Their players showed up and did the job. Nico O'Reilly with a brace to give them the title, essentially. But, Arsenal really missed a moment to capitalize and finally prove themselves to people. And I think they reaffirmed everyone's opinions about them, from an outside perspective. They didn't play pretty football. They looked stagnant. I mean, Kepa stood on the ball in the first half for, I think, 30 seconds. And it just showed the intent of the game. The team wasn't trying to win. The intensity wasn't there. The urgency wasn't there. And I mean, I hate to say it. What I will say is City didn't even have their starting center back pairing. They had Kusanov and Ake playing. No Ruben Diaz. Mark Gahey couldn't play because of the Carabao Cup rules. I mean, that's pretty embarrassing for Arsenal, at least. Good on those two guys for playing well. But that's embarrassing for Arsenal attackers not doing anything against them.
Yeah, we can go down this whole street, it was awful. And yeah, Kepa looked completely lost out there. I think he honestly had no clue what to do. That boy was unprepared, and that's on him. That's on Arteta. It was awful to watch. I've never seen anything quite like it. And their inability to adapt on their own. Of course, they didn't really adapt at halftime either. That's for sure on Arteta. But I mean, as top players in the world, you can't figure out the fact that City have 4 guys pressing. You can't adjust on the fly. You can't communicate. Where's the captain? Who's the captain? Saka? What was he doing? Was he wearing the band but saying nothing? It was atrocious. It was shocking. It was shockingly bad.
Well, and I think, Saka, we've talked about the concerns with him this season kind of going missing, and looking really stagnant and slow and behind the ball. And, I think things like that, you can't have your captain off the game. And he was 100% off as well. Did not look good at all. Kepa, I had said he's played in finals. What I didn't realize when I texted you that, Dad, Kepa has lost all 3 finals he's played at Wembley, playing a pretty major part in all 3 of them now in losing. So I think it goes to the point that, Arteta made the wrong decision. But here's the thing that I want to say. Both teams did it. Pep did play James Trafford in goal over Donnarumma as well, which was interesting. The thing was, Trafford showed up, Kepa did not. Trafford made a triple save in the beginning of the game to keep Arsenal out. And I was telling you, I think that completely changed the game. I mean, Arsenal were never at it, but one of those goes in 15 minutes into the game, Arsenal's up 1-0, you're looking at a completely different game.
You are, but like I said, that was maybe 10% of the problem. Arsenal, I saw a video today of the players walking down some stairs, I think, at the end of the match. And obviously they were upset, but like Declan Rice looked terrible. Mentally, physically, I think the season has taken a toll on the team. And of course, the way they lost yesterday, I don't know what we're going to get in 2 weeks. I have no clue what we're going to get in 2 weeks.
Well, the pressure's clearly mounting, and if not already mounted, it's overwhelming on these guys, if nothing else, because they cracked completely under the lights, in the moment. And Pep's team didn't, even though they have not been anywhere near a City side that we've seen in the last 10 years this year. They still showed up. That comes down to the coach, like you said, preparing his team, making sure they're ready to go. And Arsenal just simply weren't. But Dad, is this a turning point in the season? Is this a time to build momentum, or will the international break kind of break things up at a good time for Arsenal, or at a detriment to City? What do we think about that?
Well, good news, bad news, right? You don't have to play for 2 weeks. You can kind of like let that loss go, focus back on the Premier League and everything else. But you also have to sit there and let it and stew on it for 2 weeks and think about just how bad it went. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what we're going to get in 2 weeks. I really don't. Fingers crossed that they get back to their winning ways. But this was an absolute gut punch, and I'm not feeling very good about their ability to get back on track quickly.
Well, like you said, they have time to stew on it, but it could also be a time to recognize the mistakes and the missed opportunity, and to really go for it. And one stat I do want to bring up about Arsenal specifically, every time they've lost this season, so that was the 4th loss of the season for Arsenal in totality. Every time they've lost, they've followed it up with a streak of 10 games unbeaten or more. So if anything else we've seen this season, Arsenal has been resilient and shown up after they've lost. But can they do it after that big of a loss? We'll see, right? And I think City described it perfectly. Nico O'Reilly, after the game, after scoring a brace, they're like, we smell blood in the water, is exactly the words the reporter used and the words Nico O'Reilly used. They know Arsenal is down now and they're on the up. They won the trophy. They have the momentum. I can see City put in a real shift to end the season, especially now that they're out of the Champions League.
Well, right. I mean, I could just as easily, I already gave props to City, but let's slow our roll here for a minute. City did not do well against Real Madrid. They got dropped out of the Champions League. That should be an embarrassment to them. They did not look good at all in those games. So it's not like City, and it's not like City are on this massive roll. Yes, they got a key victory against Arsenal. Absolutely. And of course, they play again in a few weeks up at the Etihad. But for City to act like everything is now going their way, I think that's a little over the top as well. I think just like we've seen all season, many teams have issues. No one's been able to pull away. I mean, Arsenal, they do have a 9-point lead with a game in hand for City in the Premier League. So if you're smelling blood in the water, it's pretty far away at this point, buddy. So let's see what happens. Let's see what
I
happens.
think it's a good media play. To your point, it's a good media play for them, and it makes them look like the big dogs. But let's see if they're really the big dogs this year again, and if they're going to come out at it after this international break. But Dad, I think that's all we can say on the final for now. Disappointing day for Arsenal. Manchester City elated, won the first trophy of the season, so good on them. But what we can talk about now is maybe some underdogs this past week that we had noticed and flipping the script off of the final here. But Dad, what is your underdog this week?
All right, my underdog of the week is, once again, not necessarily a huge underdog. We've been doing some small underdogs the last few weeks, but my underdog this week is Everton. Big 3-0 victory over Chelsea. It was at home for Everton. But still, I think Everton have actually played better on the road this season. I believe they have the second best road record behind Arsenal in the Premier League this season. So the old Hilly Dick or whatever, Hilly Dickinson or whatever stadium, hey, this is a kind of a monumental victory in a season where they're legitimately chasing European football. I think we decided they're in 8th place. They're tied on points with Brentford. And I believe you said they play Brentford next. And then they play Liverpool right after that. So Everton, this is a hell of a game, a hell of a win. And if they can find a way to get results or even some wins against Brentford and Liverpool, like, watch out. They will definitely be in the running for European football.
I mean, the new stadium, the injection of life in the team, the stability of Moyes, you can really see it. This looks like what West Ham were 5 years ago. Stable, getting results when they need to get results, and they had finished in those top places, and it looks like Moyes is replicating that, so good on Everton. Dad, I'm going to stay in the Premier League here too with my pick, and I think this is actually the most intense rivalry in the Premier League that we have been unlucky not to see for a while, but Sunderland doing the double over Newcastle this year, getting a 2-1 come from behind win in that match up at St. James's Park. I mean, what a win. I saw clips from before the game, during the game. The crowd was into it. There's huge tifos, fans almost getting in fights before the games. This was true English football right here, like English football heritage where the fans were pissed. They hated each other. And Sunderland did it to Newcastle again, getting it over them. I mean, just what a big win. And I think this is why people watch English football, is these rivalries. And like I said, I think it's the most intense, hateful one in the Premier League right now from what I've seen.
Yeah, I believe I saw some video of I think it was a Sunderland bus was attacked by bottles or something. I think they even broke the windshield on the bus after the match. I would never encourage that kind of behavior, but I think it speaks to what you're talking about, the intensity of the rivalry and, not the return of hooliganism, but certainly that intensity and that passion. It was on full display. Absolutely was.
It just brings the league to life, in my opinion. A game that would usually not be turning heads this year, especially with two teams in mid-table, was maybe the story of the weekend besides the Carabao Cup Final. It had that level of atmosphere that you want to see at these matches. So good on Sunderland getting the double over Newcastle this season. They'll be stoked with that. That's a trophy in it for them this year for sure. So they'll take that one. But Dad, I want to stay in the mid-table of the Premier League for our next segment here, a new segment called the Mid-Table Moment. I want to highlight a team that maybe hasn't had as many plaudits this year, that maybe deserves them. And they're still in the European race, you could say, for any of those spots. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about Brighton and Hove Albion. Dad, what have you thought of Brighton this year?
I think Brighton has been a fun team to watch for a few seasons now. Obviously, this season, it's even better for them. I believe I've mentioned before on this podcast that I've been to the Amex. Those fans love their team. That community gets into it. And so you got to love it. And we've talked about Brighton and the way they're the way they're run as an organization, their academy and so on, and the owners, and it all seems to be coming together. I mean, Brighton and Brentford are two of these teams that, like, okay, they're figuring it out. They're top half the table. And if they keep this up, I could see them being top half of the table for some seasons to come. And of course, you alluded to the idea of maybe qualifying for European football.
And I think it's astounding, Dad, the stability of the club. I mean, this was a team that literally was, I think, 5 tiers down 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. Nowhere near the Premier League, nowhere near the Amex Stadium. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. And now to see what they are in terms of the financial business powerhouse, but also stability they've shown on the field is unreal. And I want to shout out two players that have kind of driven this season for him, Dad. First being Paul Van Hecke. I think maybe the most underrated center back in the Premier League this year. One of the best progressive passers, really gets that Brighton system going, gets them out of the back really well. And also, I mean, has chipped in with 3 goals and 2 assists from the back. We're seeing center backs be almost more like midfielders these days with how high up they play. So to see a goal and assist return from him in in addition to everything he does for their buildup, I think he's just been fantastic. And I think teams are going to be sniffing around him this summer for another big Brighton sale.
Well, I kind of want Brighton to be able to keep their players, right? And so they can continue to be competitive and so on. I understand their business model is a bit different than a Chelsea or a Man City, but like you'd like to see these teams be able to kind of continue to do it and keep that cohesiveness, right? The fact that they do lose players and still keep coming back is amazing, and it's cool. And in some ways it's a better story than an Arsenal or a Liverpool or a Man City.
Absolutely. But Dad, I think the real story here is the main man, Danny Welbeck, up front for Brighton,
Former
putting
Gunner.
on a former gunner, putting on an absolute clinic this year in the Premier League with 12 goals at the ripe young age of 35 years old. So impressive. More goals than Ekatike and Gyökeres. When you think about that, that's already insane. I mean, maybe Arsenal should have just signed back Welbeck. I don't know. I mean, I'm joking there a little bit, but Dad, there was serious shouts for Danny Welbeck to be in this England squad, backing up Harry Kane going into the summer. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great story this season for Welbeck. I think there would be absolutely no shame in including him on the English squad. I just wouldn't do it. I think in the end, I don't know how much playing time he'd actually see. I think you want to try to give someone younger that experience now, looking forward to 2030. Because let's face it, a guy like Danny Welbeck certainly isn't going to be playing 4 years from now.
Yeah.
You know, sure, give him a spot. That would be wonderful to be a but look, at England is looking to win this tournament. And while Welbeck is having a hell of a season, international football World Cup games are different than Premier League games. And while I think he could do pretty well, I just don't see him getting a lot of playing time behind a guy like Harry Kane. I really don't.
And I'm wondering, yeah, what sort of impact could he even have off the bench? It's not like his pace is really with him anymore. He's not some explosive threat. But to your point, they're trying to win now. And he kind of is a proven finisher and has been for a while, maybe not elite, but can get the job done. And maybe that's what England has needed this whole time to get over the line. And I'm just curious, I was trying to look at what forwards they brought. And obviously there's guys like Solanke and Calvert-Lewin who arguably are better and younger. So at the end of the day, it was probably the right decision to leave them out. Would have been fun for the storyline and would have been fun to give Brighton kind of their moment here. But that's why we're giving them their moment now, Dad. I think unbelievable season so far from them, but could get even better. I could see them making some noise at the end here. And as much as we dogged on him a couple weeks ago, Fabian Hertzler, fantastic young coach, and has been leading them this way for a couple seasons now.
He has. And just a real quick story about Brighton. So when my buddy Brian and I went to England a few years ago, visited you, of course, and one of the games we went to, we took the train down from London down to Brighton to go see them play in the evening. remember if it was like a Monday or what day of the week it was. And we were on a train with a guy who lived in London who had been a lifelong Brighton fan. And we got a chance to talk with him, it was great. And he talked about that in fact, he takes that train down to every single Brighton home game. He was by himself. I think he was going to meet up with some friends down there.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think I can't remember I want to say it's a 2 hour train ride, hour and a half. But I mean, the dedication to hop on that train, it was after work, get down there, get to the Amex for every game. Like that to me, that's Brighton kind of in a nutshell. And I'm sure other teams have the similar kind of stories and people like that. But to be able to talk with someone like that, like I complain about driving 45 minutes to a Rapids game. I don't know if I'd be jumping on a train every game for an hour and a half, 2 hours each way by myself. That's impressive. So there you go.
I mean, hey, good for him. And like we said at the beginning, I don't think he ever expected them to even ever be in the Premier League to begin with. So
No.
sure he's soaking in every moment, and good for him, and good for Brighton. But that is our mid-table moment this week. And Dad, now we are on to a normal segment here of Are You Serious moment of the week. Dad, this is actually a game I did not catch. And I only saw these moments kind of through the social media loophole and Vine here. But Bournemouth at Manchester United, 2-2 game, but kind of, I guess, littered with different moments of VAR trouble. Essentially, Manchester United wanted a penalty in their box. Looked like a pretty clear penalty with Adrian Truffert pushing Ahmed Diallo with an extended arm out. Was not called on the field. Bournemouth go the other way and score the equalizer. Dad, these isolated moments continue to stack up here, but this one's especially interesting as it led to a goal on the other side of the field. And, extended arm looked like a push to me. I don't know if you saw this one, but what do you think of this? I mean, could be crucial for Manchester United down the stretch here, as well as Bournemouth getting a draw when they might have not had anything, at the end.
Right. I think what we have to expect is that VAR is going to mess up more often than not. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure the percentages actually don't support that, but like, you have to just sort of hope that your club doesn't get nailed in a situation like that. But you cannot, as a fan of soccer, you cannot be surprised that VAR makes mistakes. And, I'd like to believe, I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of research somewhere, and maybe I'll dig it up at some point, but like, who more often gets hurt by VAR decisions than others? Is it more one team? Or, I mean, my sense is it kind of what goes around comes around. Sometimes you get a break from VAR, sometimes you don't. I don't think there's any great conspiracy out there. They're not going to get rid of it. They clearly haven't shown an ability to fix it or to get it right on a consistent enough basis. So I think you have to just live with it, and as a team, hope you don't get nailed at the wrong moment.
Well, and I think that's the best point you're making, Dad, is Manchester United let it affect them. I mean, at the end of the day, the whistle doesn't blow, the call's not made, you better keep playing. You better keep playing until that whistle blows or until something stops, which they didn't. They allowed Bournemouth to go make something happen because they were too caught up on a potential penalty call. And that's just a lack of experience from this younger Manchester United team that's reforming itself. You can't let those silly moments slip. And then obviously Harry Maguire gets a red card later in the game too, which is unfortunate from a more experienced player from them, denying Bournemouth a goal scoring opportunity. So, if anything, I think this is actually more on Manchester United not keeping their head, not locking in, not focusing. So I'm going to go no penalty on the VAR here. I think it maybe could have been a penalty in the game, but I think it's more of a penalty on Manchester United for not focusing and staying in touch.
I feel like I can give it a yellow card or a red card or whatever, and it's not going to make any difference. But I'll go yellow card. I mean, I did see the play one time. I need to watch it more honestly. But like I said, I'm just in this frame of mind now where like this is going to happen, and you just got to pray it doesn't make the difference in the game. Like, if it happens in the game you're going to lose anyway, whatever. If it happens in a game that you're going to win anyway, whatever. So
Yeah.
you just got to hope that when the VAR, bug comes and bites you, it does not change the outcome of the game. And before we move on from this, is it me, or like, do you think Harry Maguire deserves a spot on the English national team? Because I just don't feel like he does, but what do you think?
I think he does from a leadership perspective. He's been there every competition they've been in the last few years. And he has looked good for Manchester United this year and, kind of did regain respect around England. So I think he deserves it. I mean, he's the big slab head for a reason. He can show up in big moments. Also, he probably won't be starting. I think it'll be Konsa and Gahey starting at the back. And having Maguire off the bench or as another option, I think is fantastic for England. So I think it's great that he's in, but I don't know if you share the same sentiment.
Well, if he's going to make the squad, then I want Danny Welbeck on the squad. Because
Yes.
Calvert-Lewin is having a pretty good season in his first season away from Everton in a World Cup. Man, I'm trusting Danny Welbeck way before Calvert-Lewin. And like I said, if Maguire's going to be a experienced backup, I want Welbeck on that squad as well.
Well, and Welbeck has more goals, more goal contributions than Calvert-Lewin this year as well.
Well, there you go.
Seems more like a no-brainer to me. And you also got guys like Jordan Henderson in this squad, who's had
get on the telly. Get on the telly and call Thomas Tuchel. Tell him what I think. Danny Welbeck over Calvert-Lewin. He and Maguire will be the experienced, aura of power for England this summer.
Them and Jordan Henderson, who I just said plays for Brighton. He plays for Brentford, not Brighton. And he's had a good season, but it's these old heads. Maybe all the old heads need to be on the team. I don't know, Dad. You got to share some sentiment with them.
I don't know. Whatever. I got to worry about the U.S. England's fun to talk about, but I'm more concerned with the U.S. So I think it's time for us to
question.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think it's time to move on to parting shots here.
I was going to say there might be an England question in here, so don't shoot the messenger. But I think you're asking me first today.
Indeed, I am. Are international breaks more of a burden than a benefit?
I think most of them are these days, quite honestly, a burden. These players are playing too many damn games. I understand the point of friendlies and getting players warmed up, but some of the mid-season international breaks, like, get rid of those. We don't need to be seeing friendlies in the middle of club season. I want to watch international football when it's the prime time, when it's the World Cup, Euros, Copa America, any other tournament. I don't want to see some random USA Slovenia game in November. It just doesn't make sense for me.
Fair enough.
But Dad, back on the defensive side of things here, will LAFC break the regular season goals allowed record in the MLS, which is 26 in 34 games?
Yes, they've got a shot. I mean, they're only 5 games in. I guess it's a record, first time a team has given up no goals in the first 5 matches of the season. If they were to have done this in the middle of the season, it'd be kind of cool, but not as impressive. Everyone pays attention more when it's the first part of the season. But I don't know, man. LAFC, that team looks damn good. So, yeah, I'd say they've got a pretty solid shot at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with you there. I mean, that's a scary first 5 games, so we'll see.
I swear to God, I feel like every week I say this guy's name, and I'm sure I'm saying it's wrong, but here you go. Should Chelsea sack Liam Rossignol after 4 straight losses?
I'm going to say no, but I kind of want to flip my answer to yes, because it's Chelsea. This is Chelsea heritage right here. If it was Roman Abramovich, he would have never allowed this. He would have never allowed Chelsea to be embarrassed by PSG over 2 legs and then lose 2 straight games in the Premier League. Also getting embarrassed by Everton 3-0. I mean, getting trounced, to be honest with you. So I'm going to say they should sack him because that's what Chelsea is. That's what Chelsea do. I don't agree with it for most teams to sack guys that quickly, but for Chelsea, that's what they've done for years and years and years. So let them be in more turmoil again. Anyways, on the other side of London here, have Spurs mentally checked out for the season?
I believe they have. Think falling out of Champions League has hurt them mentally as much as anything else. And I mean, none of those guys want to get relegated, but I just feel like no one's home upstairs. And I don't know how, other than maybe trying to like not get embarrassed by getting relegated. I don't know if is that enough motivation to win enough games here and get enough points to avoid relegation. I'm not so sure. Not for a team like Spurs, right? Maybe teams that are typically in the bottom half of the table or near relegation, those teams are used to that battle. I don't know if the Spurs have that kind of experience. They don't, and I don't know if they have it up here to fight that battle. So I think it might be easier to just sort of check out because they don't know how to go about doing it.
Well, I think they're hoping West Ham are worse than them, still being a point ahead. I think that's a little bit of their hope right now. But they won midweek. I mean, I know they didn't make it through, but they beat Atletico Madrid. You maybe expected them to kick on a little bit, and they just didn't. It kind of just fell off, and losing 3-0 at home to Forest. I mean, it doesn't get much worse. It doesn't get much worse. I will say condolences to Igor Tudor, though. His father did pass away the other day right after the match. So condolences to him and his family, and hopefully everything's okay there, and we'll see what happens. But never nice to hear those things. So anyways,
Is England primed for a serious World Cup run?
yeah, they're going to be there again. They find a way to win. They have superstars on the team that can make something happen. Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice. You got guys all over the field that can make a play. Saka, when he's on form, can make a play for England. They're going to be there. I think they're going to make it to the final again somehow. Are they going to win it? I just don't know if they can get over the line. So I'm not going to say that yet.
All right. What's my last question this week?
Last question, my friend. Can Manchester City come back and win the Premier League?
Absolutely, they can. Will they? I don't think so, but check back with me after Arsenal's next Premier League game and let's see what Arsenal shows up. If the Arsenal we've seen all season shows back up, gets a solid win, looks confident, no, City, even if City beat us at home, I think the cushion is too big. So I need to see what Arsenal look like when they come back in a couple of weeks. Then I can give you a better answer. But for as of now, I mean, yeah, sure, there's 7 games left, 8 for Man City. Yeah, if Arsenal fold the 10 up, they're in trouble. Yeah, so there's a chance.
Well, we'll see what happens there, Dad. Manchester City are always a threat. But to wrap up the episode here today, Dad, we got to do a little bit of a local roundup because we got quite the week ahead of us, and we got some great players here in Colorado. And one guy I want to point out, wearing the Australian jacket for him tonight, is Lucas Harrington, 18-year-old Australian center back playing for the Rapids, already being touted as a potential future superstar in the position. Looks unbelievable on the ball, defends well, has already scored his first goal in the MLS this season, and apparently Premier League teams are already sniffing. Dad, I know you haven't watched him yet, but does this excite you that the Rapids are getting some of these players that could potentially go on to do big things?
Of course. I think before the episode today, we talked about Bombito. Real sad to see him go last year. And I think, Rapids were a weaker squad because of it. And I fear that same thing happening here. I do want to slow your roll a little bit. I think I texted to you that as good as he's looked, obviously Rapids won this week in Kansas City. I think it was 4-1, but the week prior in New York, they got their butts spanked 3-0. So not that Harrington can play defense all by himself, but he was a part of a defensive unit that gave up 3 goals. So maybe the kid needs some time to develop and to grow and to mature a little bit. I'd like to see the Rapids at least hold on to him this season, if not next season as well.
Well, and that's the thing, Dad. Like you said, he's just a kid, but I think the signs are promising, and the Rapids have needed some promising signs for a while because usually they just get rid of them. So let's hope they can maybe put something together this year. But I think you and I are both more excited for the first ever Denver Summit home game on Saturday this week, Dad. We're going to at Mile High Field here in Denver, Colorado. What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking to the fact that there's going to be already over 50,000 tickets sold. This is another indication of the growth of women's soccer around the world. I've been waiting for this opportunity. This kind of showing should put Denver back on the map, not just for friendlies, but maybe at some point bigger matches, because Denver is a soccer town. And I
It
think
is.
country's kind of forgotten that. And I hope that, I wouldn't be surprised if there's over 60,000 people that end up, showing up for that game, walk up tickets and so on and so forth. So I'm just excited for women's soccer. I think this is fantastic. I think it's well deserved. And of course, it'd be nice for the Summit to get a win at home. They've lost on the road, they've tied on the road. So let's go Summit. Get yourself your first win of your history this weekend.
Absolutely. Denver adding to its illustrious sports titles and cities, hopefully starting this weekend. But Dad, great episode today. Covered a variety of topics. Crazy time we have in football right now, but we hope you guys are going to enjoy this international break before we wrap up the club season. Dad, tell them what to do.
Subscribe and like it and tell your friends and comment and just pass the word along, right? We are growing slowly, but we are growing, and we would love any help you folks out there can give to us.
Absolutely. Keep interacting. We're loving it, guys. We see you down in the comments and we appreciate it a ton. But like I said, enjoy the rest of your weeks and we will see you all next time. Have a good one, guys. Bye bye.